Okay, before I start chit chat and stuff, does anybody have any questions or things they would like to ask in regards to practice or with what's going on? Everyone's doing well. I have everyone muted, so if you want to speak, you have to unmute.
Even if I've been so unsuccessful with the tiles, is it just, I mean, um, just a matter of timing? I'm not feel like I'm doing something wrong. I can
Have you been trying to break them between two stools or just flat on one stool?
just flat on a surface.
Okay, so just so you know, that's hard to do.
Okay.
So the
That's,
fact that your first tile like that was awesome,
yeah.
but that's not normal.
Okay.
So don't try to break them flat on the stool. I mean, it
So
can.
put them between two stools.
Right. So you want to do it between two stools. So that way
Okay.
you can a lot more focus on the follow through.
Okay. I'll try that. Thank you.
Good question.
I have a question, please, regarding the longevity meditation.
Yes.
Is there any contraindication for example, when you said you're 150 and you visualize yourself as a healthy 75-year-old doing Qigong,
Right.
is there any contraindication of being a sexy, hot 30-year-old doing Qigong that looks banging for the rest of their life? You know, like I want to be a really sexy corpse. Is there a problem with that?
Um, we want it to be realistic to an extent and then build the foundation. And then as we get really good with that foundation, then we can stretch it out a little bit, I think.
Okay, so I can get more superficial as I get stronger.
I think so, because to get that kind of detail takes energy as
Yeah.
well. So just like if we want to be very detailed in that kind of physicality aspect, it's not much different than going to 150, 200. It takes energy to do that as well.
Okay.
So, and what you could do is, touch it more frequently and just go shorter distances.
Shorter, yeah. That's what I
Do
was
that,
thinking.
do that more frequent. And then every once in a while, go longer if you really want to blueprint that pretty well.
All right. Wicked. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? Everyone's getting practice in? What about the two-person practice? Have you guys been getting some two-person practice in? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, my roommate does okay. She needs to. She's afraid to hit me.
Afraid to hit you now?
Yeah.
Say last time she got overexcited about hitting you?
She's over. Well, she's like, yeah. She's a hard time going a little harder.
Yeah, a little bit of practice is better than none, even though it's not to the physicality of the intensity that you need. But there's still lots to learn in that realm. Even if it's, they can't hit you very hard, you can still practice on adjusting to their energy, the timing, and all that stuff, and the repetition.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on the other hand, she refuses to count, and she does it in rapid succession. So, so there's that. That brings a different challenge to it.
Accelerated learning.
Yeah.
I sent out an email earlier. I sent out this link for this class and also about tuition. And for some of those of you who are on two-person, who are deep in two-person, meaning like from this point to the end of practice, you're going to be two-in-person practice. So, if some of you guys want to pivot into hands or legs, that's always an option until we get out of this little Corona phase. But it sounds like we're going another 30 days at least with how things are currently going. It could be shorter, it could be longer, but for those of you doing two-person, if you're not getting good challenge, it can get kind of boring. And then it gets so boring where you just don't even want to do it. And then you go weeks without practice. So I'd rather you do something. So we got to find some way for those of you who are deep into the two-person practice on ways to keep growing and keep getting your practice in. because you can only do so much one person and so much two person with someone who's not strong. So, but we do need to keep it interesting and, you know, productive. So if you feel like pivoting into another level would be useful, then that's an option we can take. Or if you feel like, oh, I'll just, you know, we'll go to the end of the month and see what happens, then I'm fine with that too. Because each of you know your individual predicaments and how you're able to get training in and stuff. So, yeah.
What you described as far as getting bored sounds very much like trying to homeschool our child. But on a qigong note, as far as choosing a variation, say, you know, as you suggested, as far as was it legs or hands as a possibility, is there a particular indicator which might determine if, you know, we were to go one way or another, which would be a good way to go?
Well, I would think, even though it's premature to think this, like most people know once they're pretty far in two person, like, okay, once I seal Golden Shield, I'm drawn towards going into blank. Well, obviously, if you're drawn to going into torso, we can't do that till you finish Golden Shield. But if you're like, ooh, once I seal Golden Shield, oh, I really want to do hands, then I would go to something that you're kind of gravitating towards. If you don't know, then we can talk a little bit more. I can probably make a suggestion for each person individually based on knowing you guys. But probably 60% of the time, I'm going to probably say do hands because it's fun and it's easy and it gets the energy going. For some people, doing legs, it moves the energy into a part of the body that they're not used to, and it just feels like, where did my energy go? So there's that aspect of it. Yeah, but they're very similar in practice in the way the practice is laid out with the meditations and some of the physical stimulation and the location of development. So they kind of mirror each other, even though they're just different parts of the body. So, yeah. Any other comments, questions?
Hey, Stephen,
Hey, hon.
if anyone is open and they don't mind traveling, I don't have a problem if they want to come here to train, whatever they want. I'm not gonna worry about all this. It's up to them. So what if they feel like they want to do that, I'm fine with it.
I am too, when I'm in town. So if you want to come to my house, I'm fine with training people.
Definitely not coming to Houston.
Oh, I should check up with I should check up with Don, the astronaut, see how he's doing. I should do that. Yeah, since I am in Houston. But yeah, if those of you who are open to that, then you can share each other's information and connect outside of class. That'd be great. Okay. Any other comments, questions with practice? Oh, and also in regards to, for those of you on certain levels like hands or head or torso, we can coordinate with the other people on those levels and do maybe a small group of just a short 30-minute, 40-minute class just on hands, just on legs, just on torso. That way we can see some of the practice, go through some of the meditations, because it really wouldn't be that fun for everyone if I went into the detail of doing the hand meditation or the legs meditation. So we can do break apart small classes. Got a lot of free time, so I'm pretty sure we can find a way to make it work. Okay. Let's see. I know Dr. Zhang just gave us some information recently about he was going to write an article, but Bob's super busy, so he's having a hard time translating it. So as that information comes out in print form, I'll pass that along. He did, I did talk to him about a lot of it, and then he also made a recording, which was not as informative as the talk that we had personally, but I did go over some of that, I think, in one of the meetings recently. So instead of repeating myself again, you can look back at one of the previous links for what he talked about in regards to prevention and stuff in regards to the coronavirus. But he did make an oil for the students. He doesn't really want to sell it to the general public, but it's called Prevent to Oil, and it's an oil that you put in the nose to help prevent getting sick. So, yeah. Anything else? Any other new stuff? And then we went over my reading list. So some of you guys got some books to read, got some free time to do some reading, go outside in the sun, read a book. Other than that, let's see.
You mentioned Wednesday to remind you today for the standing orbit meditation.
Nice. Yes, I had planned that to do this time. So thank you for the reminder. So we'll do that meditation when time comes, if there's nothing else to talk about. Also, you can email me in advance if you have questions or things that you would like me to discuss in the next talk on Wednesday. So that's always an option. Like, hey, can you talk more about Dantian? Or can you talk more about blah, 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 the meridians or Chinese medicine? So I'm always open to prompt and questions. Okay. Well, then we'll just do the other orbit that we haven't done yet, or we haven't done in a long time. So
I have a question before. May I ask a quick question?
Of course.
Do you know the character in Mandarin for hands?
I don't.
Okay.
Was there a question specifically about that? Like, do you know?
I'm wondering if the character can reflect anything, maybe about the, I just keep hearing whenever you talk about the hand level, just how much it can affect the brain, etc. So I'm wondering if in a Chinese character it could possibly reflect how important that is.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'll look into that. Yeah, because a lot of the Chinese characters are like little pictures. So might be something in there. But there's also different, depending on how old it is, there's lots of characters that say hands. But yeah, I'll look into that.
Thank you.
Okay. So like we did the other day, we'll take in the 3 morning suns, collect some of our energy from the day and from just kind of being scattered. We'll consolidate our energy, take in 3 suns to give us a little bit of energy to work with when moving it through the different orbits. This orbit is a little bit different than the small orbit, and it's a little bit different than the large orbit that we did last time, or at one point where we went through the arms. So this one can be done sitting in a chair or standing, or even laying down is fine too. Since most of us are probably sitting down, we could just keep sitting down. But what we'll do is we'll take the energy in lower dantian, and then we'll inhale and we'll go down the front of the legs. So over the thighs, to the knees, the shins, over the top of the feet. It's going to go over the top of the feet, under the foot, and then to the heel. And it's going to go up like Achilles tendon as you inhale. So you're going to, wait, inhale down the front of the legs, exhale from the Achilles to the calves, to the back of the knees, to the thighs, to the tailbone, and then to Ming Men. Ming Men's opposite of the navel on the back side of the body. And then from there, we're going to inhale up the back of the spine, top of the head to the forehead, and then exhale and go down to Dantian. So it's a little bit different breathing than we've done with the small orbit. But this sort of breathing is a little bit more in line with how people do the small orbit when they just go, they inhale up the spine, exhale down the front. So we're doing the breathing a little bit differently, but we're also incorporating it into the legs. So,
Stephen, can you repeat the points that you switched the breath again?
For the small orbit, we go from the navel all the way to the perineum, all the way to the top of the head. Dr. Jung says anywhere from the top of the head to the third eye to the mouth is where you can choose to do the switch. So the end of the meridian is typically, tip of the tongue. So that's usually a switch point. But sometimes it feels okay to switch at the top of the head or the forehead or the nose or the mouth. So wherever you feel comfortable in anywhere in this region to make the transition is fine. But for this one, we're going to inhale into Dantian, get it full, exhale, inhale, travel down the front of the thighs, over the top of the foot, and then it's going to wrap underneath. As you exhale, it's going to come up the back of the legs, merging at the tailbone, and then stopping at the opposite of the navel, the Ming Men point. And then from there, you're going to inhale up. And then somewhere around this region, you can switch the breathing. And then you'll exhale down to Dantian. That make sense?
Yeah, it's an inhale from lower dantian into the bottom of the feet.
Yes. Yes.
And then from the bottom of the feet, exhale into Mingmen.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
It's almost like you have the lower segment and the upper segment. So this half is inhale down, exhale up, and then inhale up, exhale down. Versus we just did, half. Like the small orbit was exhale up, inhale down. Now we're having the lower segments too.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Okay, let's get comfortable. So just gonna sit upright. So if you're sitting in a chair, try to sit towards the front of the chair to where your back's not touching the back of the chair. So you're just on the front third of the chair. You can place your hands on your thighs or coming lower dantian. You can do this meditation standing up, sitting in a chair, or laying down. And you want to lift up the top of the head. So imagine that there's a string attached to the halfway point. And it's lifting up towards the ceiling. So feel your spine lengthen. Create space between each vertebra. Allow the chi to hold you upright so you can soften and relax any tension in the body. And just bring your awareness to your skin. Allow the skin to soften. Allow it to relax. Allow the skin to feel soft like the skin of a baby. The mind tells the chi to open all the pores. So just keeping your mind inside the body, just intend for whatever energy you've left throughout the day. So all the pieces of your mind that's scattered in so many different directions, all your chi is scattered in so many different directions, chi that you left throughout the day, just inhale and draw that energy back. So using your intention, call back your energy from the day. If you spend a lot of time in front of the computer or in front of the TV, you might notice a lot of energy is coming back to the eyes. And just be open to that. So with each inhale, just keep calling back your energy from the day. Your energy is naturally coded to you, so it knows where home base is. So just intend and call back your energy, and it naturally flies back to you. And once you feel like you've collected all the energy from the day, just focus on lower dantian. You can see lower dantian very bright and very full. You can even see it slowly rotating. So we can see lower dantian behind the navel, about the size of an orange. And as you're focusing on lower dantian, just tune everything else out. So since lower dantian has this capacity to hold energy, let's collect a little bit more energy from nature to fill up lower dantian, making it even denser. So this time we're going to take in 3 morning suns. So just glance off to the horizon and imagine a bright white morning sun about 10 a.m. in the sky. See it, feel it, make it as real as possible. Using your mind, connect to the sun. Inhale and draw the sun to you, to where it's hovering right above the top of your head. Open the backway point, just like opening a window up to the outside. And with your next inhale, allow the sun to melt into a liquid light and pour straight down into lower dantian. And we create a second morning sun, bigger and brighter than the first. Just like before, pull it to you. Feel the warmth all over your body. Inhale, let it melt and pour straight into lower dantian. And one last time, a third morning sun. Just like before, inhale, pull it to you. Feel the warmth all over your body. And just whenever you're ready, breathe it straight down into lower dantian, mixing with the first 2 suns. Close the top of the head. So now lower dantian is very bright, very full with energy. So we have some energy to work with when we're moving it through the orbit. So see lower dantian very full. Inhale fully, exhale. With the next inhale, allow it to move from dantian down the front of the legs, over the thighs, over the knees, lower legs, top of the foot. It's going to go over the underside of the foot to the kidney 1 point. So you can exhale from the kidney 1 point to the heel, to the Achilles tendon, back of the calves, back of the knees, back of the thighs, merging into one pathway again, going from the tailbone to the low back. And then from the Ming Men point, opposite of the navel, we want to inhale and draw this light up the spine. So just under the skin, up the back midline. So from the low back to the mid back, behind the heart, upper back and neck, back of the head, top of the head, to the third eye, nose, then exhale down the front midline, the throat and chest, solar plex, back to Dantian. If you need to take a natural breath here, you can. And then we'll inhale again, moving it from Dantian down over the thighs to the knees, the front of the lower legs, over the top of the foot. Then exhale, wrapping around to the kidney 1 point, to the heel, back of the calves. So see this as 2 tracks of light, using your mind to move the chi along this orbit. Back of the thighs, merging back into one at the tailbone, traveling up the sacrum. And then from the low back, from the Ming Men point, we want to inhale and draw this light up the back midline, from the low back to the mid back, opposite of the heart, C7, through the vertebrae of the neck, back of the head, top of the head, third eye, nose. Exhale, allow it to move down the throat, upper chest, solar plex, back to the Dantian. That's 2 orbits. Take a natural breath here if you like. Inhale, allow it to travel down the thighs, knees, shins, top of the foot, wrapping around underneath to the kidney 1 point. Exhale to the heel, Achilles tendon, back of the calves, back of the knees, back of the thighs, merging into one at the tailbone, to the sacrum, to low back. Inhale from the low back, Ming Men point, to the mid back, drawing it up along the back midline. Opposite of your heart, upper back, C7, neck, back of the head, top of your head, forehead, third eye, nose, mouth. Exhale down the throat, upper chest, solar plex, back to Dantian. So that's 3 orbits. Let's do 6 more at your own pace. So just use your mind to lead the chi along this orbit. Just keep breathing deeply and naturally, guiding the energy, using your mind. Coordinating your breath and your intention guides the chi along these different pathways. If you lose track of what number you're on, just pick a number and continue. After you finish your 6 last orbits, you can focus on lower dantian until everyone else is finished. You can also open your eyes so I know that you're finished. So even though your eyes are open waiting for everyone else to finish, you can still have your eyes open and your focus can still be on lower dantian. Once you've finished all your orbits, you can just open your eyes, still stay connected to Dantian, and we'll wait for everyone else to finish. Okay, so with this meditation, what was I going to say? Lost my train of thought. It's a little bit longer. I mean, it's a longer pathway, and there's an extra set of breathing. So it's going to take a little bit longer than the other 2 orbits that we've done. Part of this practice is to harmonize the energy and connect the upper and the lower. So it's kind of bringing the energy into the legs so that there's good distribution of the energy throughout the entire body. Same thing with the other one where it goes to the arms. It starts to bring the energy in the arms to help distribute energy evenly through the arms. So it's not to where so much energy is in the belly and it feels like you're walking around like with the cannonball or a pregnant belly. It's like we create this energy, but we want to distribute it evenly throughout the entire system. So this meditation helps kind of balance the energy holistically and upper and lower, top to bottom, left to right, arms and legs. So these meditations are useful. You can do them back to back. Like you can do all 3 together, or you can do the 2 large orbits. You can do 9 orbits of the going into the legs, and you can do 9 orbits going into the arms. That's fine. They don't have to be done separately. But I do find it useful to collect a little bit of energy, get centered, gather some energy from the morning sun so you have a little bit more energy to work with. If we just went straight into that meditation, I think most of you would find it a little bit more difficult than doing a little bit of preparation first. So it's nice to gather a little bit of energy in Dantian so you have something to work with. Any comments, questions on this meditation? Kelly?
That I had to stop halfway and kind of shake it out because I felt like so full of energy, like I couldn't sit still. And then like at the end, my hands and my feet are just sweating. Like I don't know if that's like, is that normal? Is this really high energy, or is that like, do you think it's just pushing something out?
I think it's pushing something out because the high energy aspect that you've been doing for a long time already, taking in the morning suns and stuff like that. Unless your mind is just at a point now where all of a sudden it worked super well and you access, it's like taking in an old computer and running, old software, and you take that old software and run on a supercomputer. It's like, oh, it works instantly. So each practice, every time we do a meditation, we're getting more and more refined to where we start running these programs. The computer we're running that program on keeps getting better and better and better. So it could be that, yes, it's high energy because your mind is just so focused now that it took you to a new level, or it could be coming across some blockage. And standing up is useful because it can kind of bring out some of those blockages, and you can actually, it helps remove them too. So this one's really nice to do standing.
Is that, if that happens, where like, should I stop? If it, where I reached the point where I was like just vibrating with energy, like, should I stop and not continue the meditation?
It's personal choice. If you're standing, you don't want to black out and then fall and hit your head. If you're sitting and if you fell over, it's not that big of a deal. Then maybe continue. It's hard to say one way or another. But you can always pause, collect yourself, and then do more. Or, nope, that's good for today. It's hard to say because everyone's constitution is so different to where what would work this time might not work next time as well. So I do remember when I was in Golden Shield on woodblock that I was doing the 9 gathering breaths, and for whatever reason in that practice, my mind was so sharp and focused. I brought in so much energy that I ended up on the floor, and my legs and feet were up in the air, and I was like, zzz, I was like, wait, why am I on the floor? Oh, that's the ceiling. Like, what's going on here? And Dr. John was like, oh, too focused. You need to relax a little bit. So there are times when we can be so focused that we're bringing in too much.
And then I had another question, and I hadn't thought about this before today, is because when we pull the sun in, and that's a lot of like yang energy, should I not be doing that on the first couple days of my cycle? Is that like counterproductive?
No, I think it should be fine. Because for some people, even when they're on their period, their energy tends to drop a little bit. So it can give you a little bit of extra boosts and stuff. Um, as long as it doesn't make you bleed more, which you would probably notice if you did. But I don't see really any major contraindications for doing that during your moon cycle.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I have a question regarding the third eye.
Okay.
You've mentioned that they are these children in China that, if memory serves, can see into boxes with their ears.
Yeah.
That's okay. So with that in mind, I'm curious about your thoughts about playing with the symbolism of the third eye. So instead of an all-seeing eye, could it be an all-seeing elbow or an all-seeing toe, an all-seeing and yeah, I know. I just kept seeing it rotating into a nose, and I don't know what. What are your thoughts on that?
I forget what the terminology is when the senses get crossed, and like
Yeah, I
cer-
have that in a lot of things anyway. So
yeah, so like at certain stages when I was doing my acupuncture practice and stuff, I don't know which level of training I was doing, but it got to the point where I could smell from my fingertips when I would touch patients, and not only smell but also taste, and it was really uncomfortable, not very fun. So yeah, that can definitely happen. But the third eye is actually really unique in regards to the pineal gland, because the pineal gland is actually one of the original eyes, and it actually has eye tissue that we have in our eyes. The rods and cones are actually inside the pineal gland too. So I think the third eye in specific is kind of tying into that gland and that the higher function of that gland. I don't know how the cross senses work and being able to sense. You know, I definitely think there's times that you can sense and see things with your chi, especially after doing torso when you're doing the big bat and you're not doing the counting. Like knowing that that's coming and being ready to fire in conjunction with the bat hitting you, you can start to pick up things in the energy field that I don't think is necessarily tied to a particular organ or to an elbow or a knee. It just enters your field, and all of a sudden you just know instantly. I don't know how you would describe that either. But yeah, those children in that one book I was talking about, they would have these little lead boxes, and they would put it in shake it and put it to the ear, and they could see and tell you exactly what was inside. Like that's just how they could do it. Like they couldn't use their third eye, but they could use their ear to tell you what's inside. Um, So yeah, that book, I don't know if it's still on my reading list or not, but it's called Chinese Super Psychics. Fun book. Ah,
okay, synesthesia, I think,
yeah, I think that's what Alan said.
something like that. Yeah. Well, and thank you for that. Okay, I'll stay with the all-seeing eye, not an all-seeing elbow.
But if you find naturally that it works well for you, start there and then develop the cultivation with that, and then later you can expand it to other areas. If that makes any sense.
It does. Thank you.
It's nice to win. Success builds on success. So if you do really well with being able to sense things with your elbow, then go with that for a while. Any other fun questions, comments, discussions? Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, just regarding the meditation we did, I have trouble with my timing of my breath, it seems. So I just wondered, would it be, for example, better to just focus on the natural breath and let my mind or whatever is catch up with the following the light around the meridian or the line?
That's definitely an option. So knowing the track and the pathway that you're going to move the light along, you can go extremely slow. You can just inch it along. That's an option as well.
And what do I do with my breath? For example, I tried that and I found that I was running out of breath, so I kind of held it. I wasn't sure what to do.
For that, if you're just going to go kind of slowly and just really focus on moving it, then just breathe natural and just breathe normal and don't think about breathing and just breathe normal and just be really detailed with your breath. I mean, with your intention of where the energy is.
So don't worry too much about the timing of the breath as far as the in and out.
Right, right. And you might not want to do 9 reps. You might want to do 3 or 6 because you're going to go a lot slower and it takes a lot of focus to do that. So just like how we do the lighting up the bones, some instructors go painfully slow from my taste. It's just like, oh my God, like I would have been done 10 minutes ago, but they're still like going slowly. So it's useful to train that way. It's just not practical in a classroom setting to train that way all the time. But it's also useful to train it to where you can go kind of fast through it too. So it would be good to kind of train both. So some days you can just do free breathing and just do 3 orbits and just see how it feels. And some days you can be a little bit more structured. And there might be times at one phase where no structure with breathing helps you see it and feel it and get something from it. And then there'll be a tipping point where all of a sudden adding the breath might actually help it move more freely too. So I would suggest for you trying both and be an experiment and report back on what works.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, that was a question.
I noticed a interesting phenomenon. It was like I had only one leg rather than the meridians going down and back up both. Is that a common feeling?
It is, because we're not symmetrical. We have blocks.
What's that?
So we're not very symmetrical beings. Looking at us superficially, we look symmetrical, but energetically we're not, and the meridians are not. And the acupuncture points aren't really always the same on both sides either. They could be on the same meridian, the same point, but on different sides of the body and have specific function that the right side has that the left side doesn't, and vice versa.
This looked like both sides were going together, not one was missing.
Oh, good. Yeah. If they're in sync and they're both moving, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they were both moving, but it was as if I only had one. It was like I was a big pedestal almost, rather than separate legs.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, cool. That's a cool experience. Yeah, I misunderstood you.
Yeah, it was interesting. Different than how I've experienced the arms, where I feel both, or how I've experienced it before, where I could definitely feel both sides.
Right. Yeah, I know there's a meditation that we do at the beginning of torso when we're working with the tree, where we're sending the energy down to the legs. And then when teaching people that meditation for the first time, a lot of times I can see the energy, whether they're able to do it or not. And a lot of times I'll always ask, oh, were you able to feel it equally, connect down on both sides? And a lot of times they're like, no, it didn't go on the right side. And it's like, and it kind of confirmed what I was seeing in my mind. And a lot of times they might have an explanation for it too, like an old injury or something, or a bad injury can explain stuff like that. So yeah, trust yourself sometimes when you see it. It's like, oh, the energy is very strong and they feel like you said, a pillar almost. We call the legs the golden pillars. So they should be stable and strong and, almost in unison. Yeah. Oh, cool. Good, cool experience. Any other comments?
So you said we could do when doing the orbits, you said we could do just the microcosmic and then include the legs. And then, so microcosmic for 9 repetitions, legs for 9 repetitions. And then you even mentioned the arms for 9 as well.
Well, the large orbits. So this is version 2 of the large orbit, or version 1. We have 2 versions of the large orbit. One goes into the legs and the other goes in the arms. The small orbit is just the small one that we normally do. So you could do all 3 together. You could just choose to do, oh, today my legs feel kind of weak. Let me bring some energy and circulate through. Or, oh, my arms, I'm getting some tennis elbow, or like, I feel like my arms there's just no energy there. Then you can do the meditation to kind of gather some energy there. So you kind of get to be your own alchemist based on what you're sensing is going on. But if everything's balanced, then you can do all of them. Or you can pick and choose the ones that you feel are necessary based on what's going on.
So when you're doing that, do you do that in a specific order? Or I know you mentioned, if I remember correctly, like months back, that sometimes you'll even play with it and you'll do like the arms and the legs at the same time.
That's more what I was talking about, is when I light up the bones. So lighting up the bones, sometimes if I want to go fast, I'll light up from Dantian and go to the spine of the head. And then I'll do, instead of doing both arms, then both legs, I'll do both arms and both legs at the same time, lighting up the bones.
Okay.
That's what I was talking about in reference to that. So honestly, other than the small orbit, I don't do the big orbits very often. I just do the sun and the lighting up the bones and the small orbit more often. Because in some ways it's different but similar. You're still getting the chi into the different extremities by lighting up the bones. So it's a pretty balanced meditation in itself. But sometimes it is useful for certain levels of training that we do the big orbits into the legs or into the arms. So
Can we do the big orbits with the arms next time? Next class?
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be good so people can actually watch it a couple of times before I delete the link. So these recordings I won't keep up permanently. I think once we kind of get further along, I'll start deleting the earlier ones. But it's just unusual times right now, so trying to make things as flexible and as available for everyone as possible. Yeah. So if you want to review and listen to this one again, just to anchor it into your physiology, into your memory, go for it. Wednesday, we'll add the ones into the arms. Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So when we're moving the energy through the meridians like this, it's very similar to how, when I went to go see Deepak Chopra in Austin years and years ago, he talked about how we could use our mind to move our energy and stuff like that. And he's talking about like when people have an elevated heart rate or a headache or high blood pressure, if they were just to place their palms on their thighs and focus on their palms pulsating, that they're not pulsating at first, but by bringing your awareness there and focusing on it, you can actually start to move the chi, move the blood into the hands, and they start to pulsate. And yeah, that's kind of what we're doing with Qigong. Everybody has that function to be able to move their energy with their mind, but how efficiently can they move their energy with their mind? How well can they unify their chi and their yi and their intention and their spirit to infuse it with being into one and make it mobilize at will instantaneously? We have that function because you experience it every time you practice, especially on Golden Shield. When you're tapping the belly or tapping the torso, in that moment when you're expressing the chi, you think your belly is hitting the brick. Everything is so dense and so integrated on a level that's really hard for you to really comprehend how profound that really is, to the point where it can break a brick, or like, get hit with a baseball bat and nothing bruises. So the ability to, what we're doing with the chi in this meditation, we're doing on a much, much higher level every time we practice by telling the chi to go into that tissue at such a high power, high density form of energy. So as we do this practice, we kind of get in our own way. It's like, well, I'm not good at this, but you really are. So just give yourself permission to like allow the chi to move. You know, like I said earlier, it's useful to get a little bit of energy to work with and then move it through. But when you really look at what we're doing with moving the energy through the meridians, and then what we're doing when we're doing one of the physical practices, we're mobilizing that chi using our intention. And it's pretty neat, to the point where it's like you can mobilize your chi so much to where your hand feels so full. When you hit a stack of tiles, you don't feel anything. Or you break a tile by barely touching it. So it just kind of give you a little bit of an illustration of like how much we're really developing with this practice that we just don't fully digest all the time and acknowledge and realize. So yeah. So we all have this built-in function to move the energy with our mind, but some of us, you know, over time are better at it than others. So I think by doing Qigong, we really open up that potential to a pretty high level, to where you see the people who can do high level, you know, where they take chopsticks and stuff and then they'll chop it, or they'll do the spears in the throat. They can, this poke here feels very, very fragile. But when you use your mind and you send the chi there, all of a sudden it's like, oh, you can break arrows and bend gigantic bars of steel just by pressing against your throat. So what they're doing is they're mobilizing the chi, much like how we're mobilizing it through this orbit. So there's a lot of parallels to that. So there's value in being able to move the energy with your mind, being able to move the energy into Dantian and allow it to accumulate even more energy. So, yeah, what we're doing, you know, lots of people do all kinds of forms and to practice moving the energy, but, you know, as simple as our practice is, we're getting really good user-friendly experience with working with this energy. Sometimes we don't know that we have that ability. So just kind of throwing it out there that we have a lot of function. We have a lot of ability with moving our energy. We don't need a lot of the complicated forms to play with that. I know a lot of times people like lots and lots of forms, but you know, I kind of like results. So this practice really kind of develops a lot of results. Yeah.
Very tantalizing discussion or conversation, Stephen.
Thanks.
It makes me wonder whether, like, you know, emotional reactions, for example, that are not necessarily deliberate, are like kind of unsophisticated ways of directing our energy. And this sounds like a more sophisticated way of directing our energy or our chi. Now, that's just my initial interpretation. But I just wonder if there's any credence to that.
I think so. I think so, for sure. But I also see the ability of having stable flow and things not being able to alter it too much. So I don't know how they do it. I've seen it where they have water flowing through a little pipe, you know, like your kitchen sink. It's a little trickle, and they'll use like a magnet or something, and the water will bend. So it's like you have this flow, this water flowing out of the faucet, and then you're bringing in an outside stressor that causes it to alter. But you have a little stressor and you have a big flow. That little magnet or whatever it is that was causing the disruption doesn't cause any disruption because there's so much energy flow. So in some ways, as we have more energy and we have a stable flow, it doesn't matter what stressor is coming from the outside, that it just doesn't disrupt us. There's another factor that comes.
So we're not as vulnerable to external influences.
Exactly.
Potentially, yeah.
Exactly. And you'll notice as you do more and more of this practice, that this is like, it takes so much more to rock you and to knock you off your center. And I think part of it is having that larger stream of energy flow that's constantly flowing openly through these networks, that, you know, things in motion tend to stay in motion. They don't get like sidetracked and stuff. So yeah, I think that's a factor for sure. Cool. Any other comments? Cool. Okay. Well, if no other things you guys want to discuss, we can cut it early tonight and think of some questions and we can dialogue more. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Have a good
welcome.
night.
See everybody.
Thank you, Stephen. Good to see everyone.